And from that hour, her daughter was healed. That is the last sentence of today's gospel. But she still had to walk home. And I have been thinking about that walk all week long. Because when this woman leaves Jesus, she has not seen what has happened at home. Her daughter is somewhere else. She cannot see her. She cannot touch her. She has one thing: the word of Jesus. And so she walks. That is faith. At some point, faith means walking on the word of Jesus before we see where he is leading us. This woman had come to him desperate. Her daughter was suffering, and she could not fix it. She could not take it away. She had reached the place that every human being eventually reaches when we realize how little we control. And her prayer becomes 3 words: Lord, help me. You know, there are people sitting in the pews today who know that prayer. Lord, help me with my family. Lord, help me forgive. Lord, help me get through this. Lord, help me because I do not know what to do anymore. Sometimes faith has no beautiful words left. Lord, help me. That is how this woman approaches Jesus. And then something happens that should bother us. The disciples want her gone. Send her away. Matthew does not tell us which disciple said it. You know, I almost wish that Jesus had turned around and asked, "Bruh, who said that?" But then you see 12 grown men suddenly staring at their sandals. "Peter, was that you?" "No, Lord, wasn't me. I think it was Judas." You know, we laugh. But Matthew leaves the name blank. And maybe that is what makes this gospel so much harder. Because now we cannot find the guilty disciple, blame him, and move on. Because now every disciple has to live underneath those words, including us. Look at what is happening. This woman is trying to get to Jesus. The disciples, they're already with Jesus. And the people that are closest to him become the people making him harder to reach. She has already had enough to carry. Her daughter is suffering. She is desperate. She is an outsider. She has publicly cried out for mercy. She does not need another obstacle. She needs Jesus. And the disciples almost become the obstacle. That should make every single one of us uncomfortable. Because people are still trying to reach Jesus. And sometimes they encounter the disciples first. And you know, we rarely say, "Send her away." We have much quieter ways of saying it. A stare, a whisper, a rumor, a click, ignoring someone standing alone, knowing someone's reputation before learning their name, seeing a complicated life and deciding what kind of person they are before hearing their story. You know, us human beings are good at labels. Divorced, addict, hypocrite, troublemaker, too conservative, too liberal, bad Catholic, outsider, Canaanite. Different words, same temptation. The disciples saw her label, and Jesus saw her faith. They saw someone who did not belong. Jesus saw someone reaching for him. And eventually he says, "O woman, great is your faith." Think about that. The person the disciples wanted sent away becomes the person that Jesus praises. They got her completely wrong. And if people who physically walked beside Jesus could get someone that wrong, we should be careful about believing we have everyone figured out. Be careful whom you dismiss. Be careful whom you label. Be careful whose story you think you already know. Because the person standing the furthest away may be already moving toward Jesus. And now this woman begins her walk home. She has his word. And eventually she reaches her house. And Matthew tells us what she discovers. Her daughter has been delivered from what tormented her. Jesus was faithful. You know, her daughter had dignity before the healing. She was loved before the healing. The miracle reveals the mercy of Christ and the faith of a mother who refused to stop reaching for him. And now this woman knows something she did not know when the day began. She knows what it is to need Jesus. She knows what it is to search for him. And she knows what it is to have people make that search harder. Scripture does not tell us what she did afterward. But her journey raises a question for us. What happens when a person starts searching? Because they are searching. They are in our families. They work beside us. They live in our neighborhoods. Some have been away from the church for years. Some have never even belonged to any church. Some believe in Jesus, but they have questions about Catholicism. Some married a Catholic and have quietly wondered about this faith for years. And some think that their past has put them beyond God's mercy. Some are interested in the church, but terrified of walking through the doors. And it just so happens this coming Monday, some of them will come through those doors as OCIA begins here at Holy Trinity. And I do not want you to hear that as a parish announcement. I want you to hear that through today's gospel. People are walking toward Jesus. Different faces, different stories, different roads that brought them here. Same search. Some have never been baptized. Some have followed Christ in another Christian community. Some have been away from the church for a very long time. Some have even been away from God for a very long time. Some have questions. Some have wounds. Some may have no idea why they suddenly feel drawn toward the Catholic Church. Grace has been working long before they reach our doors. And beneath all their questions may be one they never say aloud. Is there a place here for someone like me? And that is where we enter their story. Because eventually, someone searching for Jesus encounters a disciple. And maybe that disciple is you. And if someone tells you, I'm thinking about becoming Catholic, please understand the holiness of that moment. They have trusted you with something happening between their heart and God. So do not overwhelm them. Do not interrogate them. Do not give them 17 books to read. And do not immediately start listing everything that they need to fix. Instead, I want you to say this: I'll go with you. That might change a life. I'll go with you. You are nervous? I'll go with you. You don't know where to sit? I'll go with you. You have questions? I'll go with you. You have been away from church for 30 years? I'll go with you. You are afraid that everyone's going to judge you? I'll go with you. That is what the disciples should have done for this woman. They should have helped her get closer to Jesus. And that is our calling. We do not own the road. We walk it with people. Imagine what might happen because one Catholic said, I'll go with you. Someone enters OCIA. Someone encounters Christ. Someone becomes baptized. Someone goes to confession after years of carrying shame. Someone receives the Eucharist for the very first time. A marriage changes. A family begins praying together. Children grow up knowing Jesus. And years later, those children bring their own children to Mass. And somewhere at the beginning of that entire story was one ordinary Catholic who refused to say, send them away, and instead said, I'll go with you. That is evangelization. And perhaps we have made it far more complicated than it needs to be. And you do not need to know every answer. You certainly don't need a theology degree. You need enough love for another human being to walk beside them toward Jesus. Because nobody should have to survive the disciples to reach Christ. People should find Jesus easier to approach because they encountered us. The Canaanite woman had to fight through the disciples to reach him. Let nobody ever have to fight through us. Someone is searching for Jesus right now. Someone is afraid to come through those doors. Someone is waiting for an invitation. Go find them. And when they whisper, I don't know if I belong here, look them in the eyes and say, I'll go with you. Because sometimes the distance between a soul and Jesus is one disciple willing to walk beside them.